Welcome everyone to TechMate, the podcast that feels like you're talking to your tech brother and not just another tech bro online. I'm here again this week to talk about something very, very dear to my heart, which is owning your own technology. So whether that's photos, videos, anything on your home network, I am very passionate about owning it so that you have control over it and not somebody else in some data center somewhere and other people doing stuff with your data you might not necessarily know about or consent to. So I'm really excited to talk about this today. I've been so excited to be back here because last week it was such a good outlet for me personally on a personal level to talk about technology, and I've loved engaging with the few people who have kind of found my content online. So I'm really excited to get into another episode of something that I hopefully might enlighten you if you don't know about a couple of these things. And I'm hoping to learn from you too. So if you have anything that is similar to what I'm going to be talking about today, anything interesting you've done at your home or maybe at work that you can personally take advantage of in technology, I would love to hear about in the comments, or follow, share online in some capacity, and let me know because I'd love to hear about it, respond, and maybe take advantage of it. So what I'm going to talk about today is definitely not everything that is possible. I keep coming across new things that I want to try or want to take advantage of. So the first thing that we're going to talk about today is something called Jellyfin. Jellyfin is one of the coolest open source platforms or applications that you can take advantage of to kind of take back control of your own digital footprint, because there's so many subscription services out there. Netflix, Disney, Amazon. It is very convenient, but it can be very overwhelming. Like, how many hours of things are uploaded to Netflix that you don't watch, don't care about? Personally, in my household, we always have the same two shows on. So why give Netflix your money when you could buy what you might be using and actually just have that, and then you own it in case. There are instances all the time where Disney will change episodes of The Simpsons or old cartoons, and maybe you have a personal nostalgia to what it was exactly growing up, that you actually need that old file, that old video file of your own to be able to have that exact experience. And so in order to replicate that and kind of hold on to it, you might not be able to find it on the streaming platforms for whatever reason. They might have changed it. So Jellyfin is an application that you can host yourself on any computer through Docker, or just like your personal local machine can host it on a certain port. By that I mean you download the application and you can run it as a kind of desktop application on a Windows machine, on a Linux machine, whatever you might have, and simply install it, it'll walk you through how to get it up and running on, like, the documentation is very good. Open source means anybody can go online and see what the code looks like, and anybody can make improvements of it. So if you want to contribute to that project, you are more than capable of digging through that code, and if you don't see a feature that you want, you can actually add to it. So that's part of the thing I love. If you're into technology, kind of the infrastructure side maybe, or not, it's becoming more popular. You will hear about self-hosting, which is something that I'm very passionate about. If you're able to, of course, it's interesting to me. There's pros and cons to doing everything, but I love having something on my own network and being able to maintain it, especially if it doesn't take too much maintenance, because there's definitely a lot of, if you have so many applications that you're running, it's going to be a second job just maintaining your home network, and that's, no fun. It takes the fun out of it. So whatever you do, it needs to be maintainable. It needs to be reasonable for the amount of time and effort that you're going to be putting into it. And Jellyfin, I can tell you, has not taken much time for me. I installed it once. I have it on my NAS, which is a network attached storage device. It essentially acts as a file share for my home network. which is just a huge USB stick with some more, added capabilities, if you will. I know I'm jumping all over the place here, so stick with me, but just to explain, in case you don't know, network attached storage is a device, a computer essentially, where you put hard drives into it for storage, or basically you're going to want to put hard drives into it, but it has certain hardware capabilities and software capabilities depending on what NAS you're buying. It will allow you to have redundancy, because when you're talking about data storage, there's something called the 3-2-1 rule, and that is you want 3 copies of your data. 2 in one place is fine and acceptable typically, and then you want 1 in another place. And that's just the best practice for safety and security of your data. As we are moving towards a more and more digital world, I think, especially over the next 20, 30, 50 years, people are going to really cherish the ability to own and house their own data, because when you give it to Google, when you give it to Apple, you are beholden to them and you are trusting them to allow you access, to not mispurpose or misuse that data that you're giving them, and for it to be always consistently accessible to you. And of course, they have tons of money. They have brilliant people working there. Those companies will likely never go anywhere. But there have been collapses of industries before. There have been collapses of companies. And I think it is so important, especially going forward. Everything is going to be digital. It is at very least, an interesting technical challenge or hobby, if you will, to maintain yourself. And trust me, I know this might sound complicated if you're not super technical, but anybody could do this. Anybody could take a computer, download the Jellyfin application, run it, go to that URL, boom, everything, all your files will be there. I don't think I've explained Jellyfin too well at this point, so stick with me. Jellyfin is a way of hosting your own video files or photos or music, but mainly video files. So MP4s, I think. I could be mistaken, drawing a blank there, but any video file essentially will be able to be hosted on Jellyfin, and then you can go and actually watch those things. So what you do is you get it can even be a cheap Blu-ray player that just attaches USB stick style to your computer. There are different applications. There's one called Handbrake, and there's one called immichApplication. MKV is a type of video file. Typically, you're going to want the immichApplication file personally if storage isn't an issue on wherever you're storing it, on your computer, on your NAS, on your external storage, because MKV files are uncompressed, so it will give you the most natural version of the file. If you use one called Handbrake, it does the compression for you, so it saves storage, but you don't have as much control over that file. Not that I've ever actually done anything with the MKV files. I haven't compressed them or whatever in the future, but it's a future-proofing technique in a sense for me. And if you want to be really cheap about it, you can use immichApplication for free by going to their website and getting the beta code, and you can actually just keep renewing the beta code every month because it expires every month. So you get immichApplication, you have a Blu-ray player, you plug it into your computer, you get a Blu-ray. They're so cheap, you can find them at any secondhand store. Sometimes people give them away for free at Facebook Marketplace, whatever it is. You put that disc in the Blu-ray player, launch it through immichApplication. It will spit out a video file for you. You put that in the right folder in Jellyfin, and then you will be able to stream that via Jellyfin, and boom, you own it. It is yours. That file is yours. And Jellyfin is essentially acting as your own personal streaming service. Pretty friggin' cool. Like, personally, that is so exciting to me. When I heard about this, I was like, hell yeah, I want to be part of that. Absolutely no questions asked. It is definitely not a money saving like technique unless you're only going to be watching a couple of things, or you're going to be getting things very cheap. And also, of course, you're not getting the cutting edge episodes of Love Island or whatever you might be watching. They don't always come to Blu-ray, but still a lot of the major TV shows and like series and movies will come to Blu-ray eventually. You just need to maybe be a little bit patient, pick them up eventually, and then rip them at that point. There's also 4K. You can rip any kind of like standard that you want. There might be a couple little caveats with that. Super interesting to look into. I hope that this has given you a little bit of an idea of what's possible. It is a really fun thing to do if you're a tech hobbyist, and I definitely haven't given you the full scope and capabilities of what you can do, but I hope that this serves as a little bit of introduction to that. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to let me know in the comments below. I would love to talk about it, give people advice, share feedback. It is a great community online, the Jellyfin community. Actually, I believe it's an offshoot of Plex, which is a paid service that is similar-ish. And yeah, there's lots to look into. So if that sounds fun to you, please take a look online and let me know what you think. And yeah, the next thing that I have personally just recently got into is something called immich, which is another open source, self-hosted application you can run personally on your computer. You can do it. I'm doing it through Docker. Docker is a containerized application hosting app, I guess, is one way of saying it. I tried, when I talk about things, I try to make it as accessible as possible. So if I'm bringing it down a little bit in level and not going too technical, I don't want this to be a tutorial. I just want to have a conversation. So, and also I don't know everything. Like, I'm very open about that. But what is fun is to like be able to talk about different things and maybe explore different things if you're interested. So again, immich, which I run through Docker on my NAS, because my NAS is a TerraMaster NAS or a TNAS, and it has its own OS. It's Linux, which is an offshoot of Windows, which not an offshoot of Windows, but it's a separate OS than Windows. Immich is really cool. You can basically upload all of your image files to it, and it has kind of all the features that you might get from Apple Photos or Google Photos. There are heat maps that give you the location of where your photos were taken, of course the dates. It organizes it beautifully. You can put albums in it. You can add different users to the application if you want to share it with your friends or family. It is really neat. I'm pretty new to this one. I've only installed it a week or two ago and got it up and running. I have had trouble with the metadata of uploading some of my files to it, and it's gotten the metadata wrong. I've looked into it a little bit. I've heard it's because maybe the image didn't export them properly, or maybe there was two files depending on what kind of file your photos were before you uploaded them. There do seem to be some extraction tools, and maybe if I upload them a different way, I might be able to get the metadata sorted out. I will get back. I'll post an update to this eventually. But in general, really, really cool application. I am so, because of different events in my life, I'm very protective of my photos, and I try to be in my personal data. There's definitely schools of thought about that. Like, I hear people say, Google knows everything about me anyway. What do I have to hide? Doesn't matter. totally fair argument. Google knows everything about me, like at this point, but I like to the best of my ability, within reason, take ownership of my personal data and my family's personal data, especially going forward. So you hear stories all the time about like your data is always being sold, your data is on the dark web, whatever it is. This is one way you can try to combat that a little bit. Of course, you're not going to completely get away from Google, but Immich is a really cool place to put your photos. It's super simple. It's very user friendly. You can interact with it essentially the same way you would Google Photos, Apple Photos, all the major ones. You download it, host it on Docker if that's what you want to do, and then you can go to that IP on your home network and use it very intuitively. Again, there's heat maps, there's face recognition if you want to do it, but it's all self-hosted. There are some add-ons that you can use that go out to the web, but you can also disable those. You can look at the community online. There's a very vibrant community. There's a couple different like platforms that do this too. If you're not in this world, there are so many people who are also passionate about this that work on this all the time in their spare time and make these tools better. Jellyfin and Immich, and there's different competitors to these open source like applications too. So you don't just have to go with these ones, but these are the ones that I use. Very user friendly. I just downloaded all my photos off of Google, put them all on Immich, and then I can see them. So really cool. I will definitely give people updates going forward on what Immich is like for me. I would recommend it, although I do have a bit of a metadata issue, which is kind of annoying, but I will try to figure that out. Yeah, I'm sure there's a solution. There's a solution to every problem. The next thing that is something that you can actually do yourself is a VPN. VPN is a virtual private network. It makes you seem as though your device is at your home Wi-Fi network. So if you're out and about at a coffee shop or on your mobile data and you want to do something like go to your Jellyfin server or your immich server that is hosted at home, you need a VPN of some kind to get back to your home network so that your network traffic coming out makes it seem like you are at home so that you have access to it. Because otherwise, you're not going to be able to get to the IPs, which is Internet Protocol, that you would need to get to in order to access those platforms. Does that make sense? If not, I'm sure somebody could explain it better, or I will try again, or in the comments I will message back. But basically, a VPN, of which there are many. There are so many commercial VPNs out there. There's NordVPN, there's Proton, there's so many. Some of them are great, all of them are good, but more and more I find ISPs, internet service providers, so Bell, Rogers if you're in Canada, or AT&T maybe in the States, are getting better at being able to block traffic coming from VPNs. And that is becoming increasingly annoying because it used to be the case that you would go on NordVPN, you would set yourself to maybe a European country or the States or whatever it might be, and you would be able to watch content like Netflix or whatever. Maybe Netflix America would have something that Netflix Canada wouldn't have, and you would be able to watch the content there. But they're getting better at blocking it. So doing it yourself is one way you might be able to get around that. It's very hit or miss. I can tell you personally that I've been overseas and not been able to get into my personal banking account, which was very interesting to me. I had no idea that. I've never experienced this before. I've always been able to log into my bank account, and this bank that I was using is kind of a more niche bank, not one of the big ones, but I couldn't get into it overseas, and I couldn't figure out why. And then eventually I turned on my VPN to make it seem like I was at home, and it worked. So really cool thing. You never know when it might come in handy. It's Of course, 9 times out of 10, it might not really matter, but if you are hosting your own services at home, a VPN is something you might want to look into so that you can get to them easily and so that they're easily accessible for you. But there are some interesting use cases as well. If you travel or you're interested in what's going on around the world, they can be pretty cool. What I was going to say though is nothing is 100% secure. VPN companies really make it seem like nothing you do can ever be tracked. Of course, if somebody really wants to, they will find what you are doing if they have the resources or state backed or whatever it might be. But they're very good, and for the average consumer, great tools to kind of mask your identity or just give you more capability to get back home so that you can do whatever you want to do. Anyway, I found some cool tutorials. I'm not going to get too in depth. I will try to link the one that I've used before to set it up on a Raspberry Pi. But there is a really cool new technology that I've found recently, because to get a little technical for a minute, I moved recently. I had a VPN set up on my Raspberry Pi, but the internet service provider I uses a public IP. When you are networking something, a VPN, your modem at your home network will be assigned a public IP. That public IP is the internet facing IP that every device in the world will see. If you are on Facebook, it will look like it's coming from that modem's IP. Say, no matter what device you are at home. If you Googled right now, what's my IP on your phone and then did it on your desktop, they should be the same IP, because that's what the outside world can see. Inside, they can't really see it. But my internet service provider, I'm kind of in the country, I'm pretty rural, so I was provided a modem, and there's also a radio antenna on the top of my house. The modem's public IP that I have in my house is different than the public IP on the radio antenna at the top of my house. So I can't see that without communicating with my ISP, which would be a huge pain. But I couldn't use my traditional VPN setup because I couldn't find the second public IP. So that's a little complicated maybe for people who don't have experience with that. But it's really interesting problems that you get to solve when you start playing with stuff. And the deeper the understanding you have, the better. And I've found with pretty much everything in life, you will figure things out when you have to deal with them and when you actually take the time to understand them without being in a rush, without freaking out or being in a panic. And by playing with things, that is how you will learn the best, without a doubt. Otherwise, things are just conceptual, or you read about things you never actually get to touch, or you might touch things and copy commands that you see watching a YouTube video. But if you're not taking the time to actually think about why I'm doing this, you're not really gonna get that comprehension that will serve you best in your career, in your future, at home, wherever it is. All that to say, the new kind of technology that I'm using is something called Tail Scale, which is really cool. It handles all the networking and all the routing for you, so that really it's stupid easy. You just install Tail Scale on your device, install it on your other device that you want to be able to talk to, and it figures out everything for you. If you Google it, you will figure it out in 5 minutes. You just get the app on your phone, and then on my Linux machine, I did install Tail Scale. 5 minutes later, I was up and running. Super cool. It's essentially a VPN, free for personal use, very easy, and it handles all the complicated routing. It is so So good. I would highly recommend it. If you want to learn about VPNs, you can set one up yourself most of the time. There are great YouTube videos. I will link my favorite down below. Basically, what you need to do is give your public IP to again, I like free stuff, I'm cheap, to a public DNS record kind of hosting service. DNS meaning domain name services, which the internet is, it is how when you type in youtube.com, it goes to whatever IP it's supposed to go to, because a computer doesn't know what youtube.com is. It knows what the IP address of it is. So when you go to youtube.com, the computer is actually reading like a bunch of numbers, not youtube.com. But so that it's human readable and we can see it, you're seeing youtube.com. Cool. If that's clear, perfect. If not, again, I'd be happy to chat about it in the comments. All of that to say, there's so much that you can do. The world of IT and technology is so vast. There's so many aspects of it you might have no idea about. These are some of my favorite things that I've done at home and have successfully implemented and have kind of made my understanding of IT infrastructure, IT networking better, but also, in my opinion, improved my personal life. I love having ownership of, like, true ownership of my own photos and videos. It is something I'm very passionate about. I think it's important for everybody to do, so that you are not giving a huge company more control over you than they should. There's that famous quote that goes something like, if something is free, then you are the product. And I think most of the time that's probably true, especially with these huge companies. And I just want to take myself out of that where I can. So hopefully I've inspired you to look into this. I promise you it is not as hard as it might sound. I know I've talked a lot here and it can be a little daunting and you might have to start over a couple times. But if you think of it as a learning experience or exercise, then it will serve you well. I'm sure of it. You feel free to let me know how it goes. I would love to see any success stories. I look forward to hearing about it. And there are definitely going to be some people who just don't agree with this. I think that's fair. Like, Google will host it. You'll never have to worry about it. It's not something that everybody cares about, but I'm an advocate for it. And hopefully I've given you enough reasons to at least see my point of view. I'm happy to discuss it. Let me know. But thank you for watching, listening. Please like, subscribe, follow, do all that fun stuff. I'm really enjoying having this space online. I hope that you will stick around, follow along. Please comment. Let me know what you might want to hear about in the future, your ideas, what you do at home. And yeah, I'd love to kind of foster that community. So thanks for listening. I'll see y'all next time. Cheers.